Mike, hello.
Hey Simon, how are you doing?
Very well, thanks. Perhaps you could tell me a little bit about your role at Oracle?
Sure. My role at Oracle, I run the product management team for WebLogic Server and the OC4J infrastructure as well. Our team basically does both the works with engineers to define what the product is and sort of set the roadmap for it, as well as trains the field and participates in conferences like UKOUG in terms of evangelizing the product.
Okay, great, thanks. Of course, this year's been a pretty monumental year for Oracle's middleware products, and many of our user group members are interested in upgrading. So, firstly, let's get it out of the way. Can you talk a little bit about licensing and whether existing application server customers can move to WebLogic and what sort of costs might be involved?
Sure, that's a good question, Simon. So first thing is to say, like you say, it has been a huge year for Oracle. We put out Fusion Middleware 11G and basically put out the entire product portfolio certified on WebLogic Server. So that was a huge engineering effort, and of course now we're going to market around that. One of the things that was important was we wanted to provide a roadmap forward not only for the WebLogic install base, which obviously just carry forward as is and uptake the new release, but also for Oracle Application Server customers who we have a huge community there, and we want them to uptake Fusion Middleware 11 as well. One of the things that we really encourage our customers to look at and evaluate and look for in a Fusion Middleware 11G is what we call WebLogic Suite 11G. This is a combination of WebLogic Server, Coherence, and JRocket, sort of our premier runtime infrastructure, and then all of the IaaS infrastructure, forms, reports, Discover, Oracle HTTP Server, Web Cache, and so forth, all certified and working on WebLogic Server. So that's a sort of a key place to point our customers towards. Of course, there can be situations where the customer simply wants to get their existing licenses, IaaS Enterprise Edition, over onto WebLogic Server. We do have a path for those customers as well. They don't necessarily have to go to WebLogic Suite, although we do recommend it. Something called WebLogic Server Basic, which gives them equivalent functionality to what they had in the IaaS world, and sort of provides a roadmap for them to then incrementally go to WebLogic Suite, where they get the full use of WebLogic Server.
Oh, okay. So do you think with WebLogic Basic it's going to give people a fair feel for what is possible within WebLogic Suite? For example, some of the features like JRocket and WebLogic scripting?
Sure. So what we've done is we've made sure that the core features like WebLogic scripting tool, WLST, are fundamentally there, so you can do effectively the same administrative and operations things that you would do in Oracle Application Server. With all of our server products, we've included a license of JRocket to answer that specific question. What we've done, though, is we've restricted some of the higher-end features of JRocket, like the real-time capabilities and so forth. But in the core IaaS license, you get the basic runtime infrastructure with WebLogic Server. You also get the common administrative operations things. What we've primarily restricted more generically is the higher end capabilities. So some of the side-by-side deployment, the whole server migration capabilities have been restricted because they simply weren't there in the IaaS world. But the basic functionality, the same capabilities that you had in IaaS, are matched.
Okay, well that's interesting. Do you think that whether customers choose to go to WebLogic Basic or WebLogic Suite, they're going to be able to upgrade over a period of time, or do you see it as quite a big transition for people?
So we've invested quite heavily over the last year, actually continuing even right now, in terms of making the technical upgrade as straightforward as possible. There's sort of two parts to it. There's the layered products in IaaS, forms, reports, Discover, Portal, OHS, and so forth, where we've built a set of upgrade assistants to make that upgrade much more seamless. It's not something that you manually have to do and figure out the configuration. The upgrade assistant walks you through it. And then there's quite a rich set of documentation supporting that. And then there's the J2EE side, where you have custom Java applications, and we've built a tool called WebLogic Smart Upgrade. And what this tool does is basically helps you first analyzes your Java applications, reports on what functionality needs to be moved over, and then actually physically technically does the migration of a number of components. Right now it moves web applications and web services. You'll see it over the next 6 to 12 months. You'll see increasing functionality around JMS, JCA, and some of the higher end capabilities of OC4J as well. Bottom line is that we're trying to provide as much automation as possible so that you have a seamless upgrade. It's not something to be undertaken lightly, but definitely we've invested in tooling and documentation to support you.
Okay. How about we have a little slight change of tack here? One question I'm often asked when out and about is why should people be considering WebLogic instead of some of the open source products, say Glassfish and the like? What sort of things do you think are WebLogic's real strengths?
Sure. WebLogic has been a premier Java EE server for quite a number of years now. Where it started was really aimed around the development community, where it was very popular, very aggressively following the Java EE standards. And then as it's matured, a lot of the investment has gone into the operations and administrative side. So we have huge customers now running literally thousands of instances and thousands of domains of WebLogic server, and a lot of our tooling and administrative capabilities have catered to that kind of infrastructure. So if you were to, pin me to the table and say, what is the thing that really is differentiating WebLogic today, I'd really say it's the operations and administrative side of things. When you compare, particularly against open source, where they tend to be aiming much more at the developer market and then leaving the ops side more to your own devices. The developer side is something that we also now have started reinvesting now that BEA has been at Oracle. You might have noticed in 10GR3 we introduced a lightweight installer. Lets you get down to a smaller footprint of about 170 megabytes, and it's an area that we really think is going to be invested in going forward, getting into a lot of the very common development environments like Maven, Ivy, Cruise Control, Hudson to sort of help automate your build environment. We think that's where the next big investment you'll see coming on the developer side of WebLogic server.
Okay. And while we're speaking about where things are kind of heading, if you had your application server crystal ball out, where would you see things happening within the next few years, looking a bit further ahead?
Sure. Since BEA has come to Oracle and we've combined the Oracle App Server team with the WebLogic team, it's been a pretty exciting time because together we can do some pretty interesting things. I'd say I think there's probably 4 major areas of investment that you'll see evolve over the next few years. One of them we like to call Just Enough Application Server. This is very much aimed at what I talked about in the previous one, really aiming at the developer-centric view of the world and answering concerns about lightweight development, continuous integration, and so forth. Another major area of investment is what I call enterprise runtime services. This is where we're integrating in key advantages that Oracle brings to the table, like rack, coherence, as areas that we think are pretty unique to Oracle, and we can do some pretty tight integration between the app server and these back-end technologies, sort of to get higher scalability, better performance, more reliability out of the entire environment. Third area that has got a lot of investment is virtualization, where we're going to be working in things like WebLogic Server Virtual Edition, you heard me talk about earlier today, running on a native hypervisor without an OS, high-performance virtualized environments. Then the last area is really sort of a consistent operational environment with patching, install, upgrade. You'll see that sort of common Oracle Universal Installer, patch infrastructure sort of carried forward. So a lot of innovation coming, a lot of interesting things coming.
Okay, well thanks Mike. I think there's been an awful lot of information that you've just shared with us then. I guess for people now that are interested in sort of taking the next step and looking further into WebLogic and possible upgrade paths, where's the best place for them to look?
I'm sure. Well, we've put a lot of work into the OTN site, so Oracle Technology Network is definitely a key place to go. For upgrades specifically, we've built out an upgrade site, and it talks about not only the J2EE side of IAS, but also the forms, reports, discover, all the basic steps you have to do there, and points you to all the resources, recordings, documentation, tooling. We also have material on WebLogic upgrades. Of course, people going from WebLogic 8.1, 9.2, 10GR3 to 11 as well. So that upgrade center is a huge resource center. And then, of course, OTN is where we've consolidated all the user forums and all the white papers and collateral that we have about WebLogic Server. So OTN is your go-to place, and we really hope you take a look at it.
Okay, great. Well, thanks again, Mike, and thanks once again for coming over from Canada to speak at the UKOUG conference. I'm Simon Haslam, and one of the UKOUG volunteers.